What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and today we are going to begin our world's research. Some of the research is very in depth, some of the research is not in depth at all. I hope you all understand by now that this is focused on betting, and since it's focused on betting, sometimes you'll have to take positions and make bets that sound stupid and make you feel bad and that you can't even believe yourself, but sometimes you just have to do it. And I know that a lot of you won't understand why. Some of you will get upset. Some of you will screech at me in the comments, but I can't help it. I can't help it. So, there are 20 games that we're going to go through today, 20 matchups. Some of the research will be redundant between games, so I'm not going to do the exact same thing for every single match. I'm just going to do as much as I need to in order to feel comfortable with the matchup. So the first match of Worlds in the play-in stage is going to be Hanwha Life against LNG. So normally, when I start thinking about how two teams line up with one another, I like going lane by lane and trying to figure out who has advantages and where. So I guess we could do that. So Hanwha Life and LNG. So for Hanwha Life, we have Morgan. Morgan is a pretty underrated player, I think, at this point. It's very difficult for people to see his performances from the past 2 years and get extremely confident that he's a very good top laner, but after going from World Elite to Hanwha Life, he kind of had to battle out Dudu for a spot in the top lane, which was kind of mind-blowing to me. I thought that on World Elite he had a lot of good matches. The reason why he left World Elite, or I don't know if this is the reason why he left World Elite, but think about the top laner that replaced him on World Elite is Breathe. Breathe played out of his mind this year, had a very good season. Breathe and Beishang were a good combination. I think that Morgan is very similar in terms of his carry upside, and we see that in his champion pool, and I know that a lot of top laners play the same things, but let's take a look at what happened in the regional finals. And I know that this is just what I'm going to do. So we're going to take a look at the regional finals. So in the regional finals, let's take a look at some of the matchups that Hanwha Life opted into. So we know that Kennen is an extremely popular champion right now and will be an extremely popular champion at Worlds, assuming that there aren't gigantic nerfs or matchups that come out that are obviously just dominant against Kennen that forces teams to get away from it. So this is a spot where Hanwha Life is comfortable with the Camille Kennen matchup. Tough game for them. It was 7-12, so might seem closer than it probably was. A lot of the time, games like this is just Sandbox playing it slow, which is fine. The next game we had Camille against Kennen again, so I think that matchup is pretty likely to happen. And then in the third game, we had Jace against Camille, so at that point, Hanwha Life probably picked the Camille before the Jace. And again, I'm not going to go digging through every single thing to check what Hanwha Life did, because ultimately it's what I'm trying to figure out is how many resources do they have to dedicate to Morgan in the draft for it to really matter. And I think that them picking up Camille every single time that they get the opportunity means that they don't think there are many counter matchups that they're afraid of, so that could turn into a pick that LNG needs to pick or ban. Then we have Morgan again with a pretty good game against the Kennen, so we see Camille Kennen, Camille Kennen, Camille Jace, Camille Kennen, and that was enough to get them the win in that match. Summit was thought of as a pretty good top laner, like an up-and-coming top laner. I think that Morgan is the better player, and I'm pretty sure I said that going into the season. Morgan against Rich. So Rich is often thought of as a one trick for his Aatrox play, which might actually be making a comeback, Aatrox. But for this matchup, we have, again, Camille Kennen. Then it gets banned. So this shows that teams are willing to ban out champions against Morgan because he's a good player. And it feels extra bad because you have a player like Chovy on Hanwha Life where you don't want to waste bans when you're probably better off using them against Chovy. Then we have them giving the Camille back to Hanwha Life, and then they just dumpster a Jax. Jax is generally thought of as a counter pick against Camille. So that's good to see. So, like, just think about how much stress this puts on a draft. Like, you you just don't have it. If you're Nongshim, you probably feel like you can't do anything to stop Morgan in the top lane at that point. Because Renekton is just a generally strong champion. So if he's going to play Renekton, if he's going to play Camille, you have to have things prepared. And then at the same time, we don't even know if Morgan is willing to play Kennen. Yeah, I guess we didn't see Kennen from them at all. And then in the finals, we have Kana against Morgan. So T1, a very intelligent team. They banned Camille in the first game. They banned it in the second game. They banned it in the third game. They also banned it in the fourth game. And then in the fifth game, they banned it. So that is something I think a lot of teams will have to consider. Once you get Morgan off of Camille, maybe that's a legit question. Maybe it's just not. Maybe they're just not as good of a player. I think it's more matchup based. Like Kennen against Gnar, it's pretty tough for Gnar to punish Kennen in the laning phase, and then it's also difficult for Gnar to be as impactful or more impactful than Kennen in late game team fights. So like Gnar would be able to spike a little earlier, but then Kennen outscales. Interesting, to say the least. So obviously Hanwha Life doesn't respect Kennen in general, so they gave it up once, twice, 3, 4, all 5 games. So there are multiple options for them. They just feel like it's a... T1 thinks this is a good champion overall. I don't know if I like Kana on Kennen. I feel like that takes away some of his upside. Because he's a very good laner. Like, asking him to go even and then be good in team fights is fine too if you're playing more of a scaling meta. Or a scaling team composition, which it looks like they kind of were trying to do. But okay, that's Morgan. Morgan had a good regional finals. I think that it's really easy for players like Morgan to get lost in the shuffle when you have Chovy on your team. But I could see their top half of the map being very strong at Worlds with some interesting pressures that they put on the draft. Like, Viego is going to be an important champion because Willer plays it. Morgan's going to be looked at as a Camille one-trick by a lot of these teams, probably. If I was Hanwha Life, I would consider banning the Kennen, because once Kennen is gone, I wonder what they'd be afraid of. I guess they like the predictability of having Kennen as like a weak lane in the top lane, and then just attacking it. So if it's them baiting teams, that's pretty good too. And then on LNG, we have Ale. So Ale had a good year. I think that it's when you see a player that wasn't a starter on DMO. He had some good games on DMO. He name changed from Natural to Ale, but he didn't always start on DMO. He didn't always start on LNG, and now he's starting and he's doing pretty well. I think a lot of the success that they're enjoying right now is due to Tarzan just being incredible. So let's scroll over to look at champions. So specifically in this matchup, before I scroll up and we see what champions Ale plays, you know what champion I want to see if they play is Kennen, because Kennen is going to be left open. So we see a Kennen. We see another Kennen. 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 So we do see Kennen. Do teams ban it against him? Sometimes. That's interesting. Ale does have a good champion pool, plays the Viego, so that's going to be an important thing in the draft because they could take away Viego from Willer and then put it in the top lane. So then the question becomes, what top laners could Morgan play to beat Viego? So we see Gwen, Jax, Kennen, Renekton. So those are just a lot of brawly matchups. I'm not sure if that's really a spot that Hanwha would be able to exploit. So this one, I do think, if I'm being honest with myself, I do think that Morgan is the better player overall, because when Morgan was in the LPL, Morgan was thought of as a better top laner than Ale to begin with. So it's tough to see a split or two go by and then just have the talent flip. My hair is kind of going crazy because I slept 12 hours yesterday because my stomach was shot. So I think at worst it's a Morgan lean. Like, I think Morgan's a slightly better player. In the jungle, Tarzan is better than Willer. I feel like I don't need to put any thought into that one at all, if I'm being honest. Now, are there matchups that Willer could get? Are there, scenarios where Willer gets Viego 5 games in a row? Well, not against Hanwha, not against LNG, I guess, because it's just a best of one. So could I see a draft where Hanwha gets Camille Viego? Do we know who blue side is? Okay, so if Hanwha is blue side, I guess that's not necessarily true. Would Hanwha first pick Viego? I bet they would. So I do think that is relevant for the pick ban phase. But it's tough. It's tough to know what the world's meta is going to look like. Like, I know I talk about it a decent amount and what I expect to happen, but we don't know what is going to happen. So I don't know if it will be relevant. I just expect it to be relevant. So let's go back to this. In the mid lane, Chovy is obviously better than Icon. If you gave, I think, any single team in the world the option between picking Chovy and picking Icon, I think that between 99 to 100% of teams would pick Chovy. And I think that's correct. And then in the bot lane, we have Deft and Vista against Light and Ilwandi. It might be Iwandi, but I always thought of it as Elwandi, which is, kind of annoying. The bot lane is tough for me because I want to think that Deft is going to be able to turn it around and be very impactful. But the thing is that doesn't necessarily need to be the way that Deft approaches the draft and approaches laning phase in order to be useful for their team. Like, they don't need to be a hyper carry on this team unless the draft dictates it, especially if they're getting Camille and Viego. So the stronger top side of a map that Hanwha drafts, the more utility they can put into the bot lane. So if you get Ashe, Varus, I guess mostly Varus would be the priority, but Ashe, Varus, even something like a Ziggs, which would be a contested pick in this matchup, I think. Varus did get nerfed a little bit. That I don't think it's that concerning. If Deft is only playing utility champions against Light, then I guess LNG would potentially have the scaling upside. But in a matchup like this, would I expect? It's pretty tough. I do think that Light and Elwandi are better at this point in terms of upside, but I think that Deft is so good during the laning phase in general, and the rest of the map just might be too big of a difference for it to really matter. I'm willing to go with question mark on that one, but it would still be 2-1, and the top half of the map would be given over to Hanwha. I kind of like Hanwha as a dog here. If you told me, and I kind of talked about this during the group betting bet that I made, I think that getting Homolife at plus 150, this is going to be the only time they're an underdog during the play-in stage until we get to the knockouts. Well, potentially until we get to the knockouts. I would just probably bet Homolife here and think to myself, I'm getting value on my money. 60-40 with a 7% rake on LNG. I'm pretty sure that this just means Homolife is the right side. Let me do this. I'll include the bet. So I'm going to put 20 bucks. Uh, 20 on Homolife. All right, next is Red and Infinity. All right, so this one I'm probably going to take a little bit of time and just try to think about these teams. I need to turn on my air conditioner 1 second. It's hot. So hot in here. So hot in. That's a Nelly reference. Okay. So we have Guigo and Bugax. Before I start looking into this matchup, I do expect to think that Guigo is better. Guigo. Not sure how to say that name. And then they switch out their mid laner. So we do see a lot of different archetypes of champions. This is... You don't want to see this. You don't want to see Tahm Kench. You don't want to see Dr. Mundo. You don't really want to see Ornn. You don't want to see Sion. Malphite's okay. I hate champions that just walk around. They're not good. And then Infinity. I just want to see stylistically if there's going to be like two fundamentally different approaches. Uh-oh. Teemo? Yikes. Sion, Ornn. What are teams banning against them? Gnar, Irelia, Viego, Gwen. Decent as a flex pick. A lot of Gnar bans are interesting. Not sure I'm learning much about this player here. Tough to feel comfortable here. So basically, where my starting point for this would be that people are already talking about Red Canids as a sleeper team, where like there's hype surrounding them right now. Seems like a pretty good letdown spot. But I honestly don't know how I could convince myself to bet either side here, so I might have to come back to it once I talk to other people about it. So Grevthar. So top, like I'm just not familiar enough with most of these players. So I will make a bet on this game eventually, but I can't do it yet. Alright, that's fine. I feel like I don't have an edge there. LNG against Peace. So Peace is the team from the LPL. Vizicsacsi is subbing in, so it's Vizicsacsi, Babip, Tally, Violet, and Aladaric, I think. At at plus 700, that's pretty tough. The fact that I have to make a bet on this game, I'll probably just bet on LNG because I do think that LNG wins this almost every single time. So I'm fine doing that. Like if you wanted to put $20 on Peace in the off chance that they get an upset, then I get it. Like I understand why you'd want to do that, but since I have to bet every single game, I think I'd rather just take LNG and assume that they take care of business. Homalife against Infinity. This is another one where I'm just going to pick Homalife because I do expect Homalife to get 3 to 4 wins in the group stage. So there's that. Detonation, Focus Me, and Unicorns of Love. So Detonation, Focus Me, and Unicorns of Love. Boss had a good year last year. EVI. I'm not sure that's a good player. Alright. This is not a good sign. This means that they don't spend a lot of time thinking about their top laner in the draft. It looks like they're going to play some tanks or either play Gnar or a tank that doesn't do anything. I think that Boss is going to have the advantage in the top lane. From a pick ban perspective. Like, their team is willing to commit... Oh, I don't like that either. That's not good. Jace, Renekton. They're okay playing tanks into tanks, which is kind of annoying. They play Gwen into tanks, which is more interesting for me. Man, there's so many tanks in these top lane matchups. I'm used to seeing more like carry versus carry stuff. Or at least playmaker versus playmaker. I do like the Gwen. Camille's banned out often against them. I would assume that Unicorns of Love has a top lane advantage. Based on what I remember from them. And then in the jungle... So we have a carry jungler. This I hope we see a Shaco. That'd be so cool. Trundle, Lee Sin, Jarvan. So I think that Detonation Focus Me probably has the advantage here. And I know that might seem like way too simple of analysis, like looking at these players' champion pools and trying to figure out where the advantages are going to come from. But if Detonation Focus Me is playing more carry-oriented junglers and Unicorns of Love is not, it means that Detonation Focus Me is willing to put the game into the jungler's hands, whereas Unicorns of Love is not. And that is something that doesn't really surprise me too much, but in this kind of meta, you need to have a jungler who is going to be better than not be better, but you need a jungler that can take advantage of the tempo that certain matchups allow. So if Detonation Focus Me gets an early a carry jungler against something that's more generic, like a Trundle or a Lee Sin or a Jarvan, then it's going to be an advantage to Detonation Focus Me. That Shaco is very interesting. Getting Nidalee banned against you in 2021, that's something. That's something. Oh, we got Nidalee banned here too. In the mid lane, we have No Man's. Whoa. Vayne, Kassadin, Yasuo, Yone, Kassadin. That's some interesting stuff right there. So this is really just going to go back to my memories of Detonation Focus Me building their team around Arya and forcing like one of their coaches to come out of retirement so that Arya could get international experience. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that Detonation Focus Me has the better mid laner. A lot of these matchups, there could be some very interesting draft stuff that Unicorns of Love pulls out. So if you think that... Well, there's two things. So Unicorns of Love is the more popular name. It's the more popular name, and people will remember that they had some good performances last year in the play-in stage. I'm willing to bet against that every single time. So I am pretty confident that it's going to be $20 on Detonation Focus Me already to begin with. And then in the bot lane, I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure that Unicorns of Love has the better bot lane. Yutapon strikes me as a not good player, from what I remember. This team is not about the bot lane. This team is built around Arya and Steel. So that's really where the biggest advantage comes from, and that's where I would expect them to win the game. Beyond and Galatasaray. I will bet money on that. Beyond and Galatasaray. Leong, Husha, Husky, Doggo. Crazy. I don't have good thoughts about Crazy. This is a tough one. So again, this is a spot where I start asking myself, why is Beyond? Why should I believe that Beyond wins 65% of the time? It's probably closer to a coin flip. So that automatically makes me want to bet Galatasaray. That's interesting. Whoops. Looks like they're more likely to pick the passive side of a matchup. This could be an explosive top lane. I don't think I believe in Crazy, though. I've definitely seen that guy's face before, and I feel like I just pick against him every single time. Mojito. Sick name. What is that? They swapped top and jungle? That's pretty cool. So let's see. What do they play in the bot lane? Everybody's going to be all over Doggo. I think this is just an easy spot where you pick against Beyond because people want Doggo to be good. I know it's a cheap way to pick, but I'm thinking that's where I'm going to end up. Cloud9 against Detonation Focus Me. I think I have to pick Cloud9 here. So Fudge against Eevee. I like Fudge better. Blabber against Steel. I probably like Blabber better. Perks against Arya. I like Perks. I think I like Perks better. That would be interesting if Arya ended up being like a super good player. But I'd have to see that on stage against Perks before I just assume that they're better than Perks. And then Sven and Vulcan against Yutapon and Gange. Ganji. I'm just gonna assume C9's better there. Like it's if I bet against C9 in their first match, and they just stomp Detonation Focus me, I won't be able to forgive myself. If I'm being honest. Okay, Unicorns of Love. I'm gonna bet $20 on that. Unicorns of Love against Galatasaray. This is a spot where I think you want to probably just be on Galatasaray again. The reason why I'm definitely gonna bet on this before it goes, like days before, maybe even today, is because if Unicorns of Love loses to Detonation Focus Me and Galatasaray beats Beyond, then I could easily see this line flipping and being Galatasaray as the favorite. So you're not getting a lot of additional value from that point, but if it moved like 30 to 40, like 30 to 40 on the money line, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Homolife against Peace. I'm not picking against Homolife. I'm not picking against LNG. And those are spots where if you're more of like a player who picks like extremely high underdogs, you have 15%, 18%, 13%. So if you wanted to bet all of them at $20, it wouldn't be the worst. You'd have to do this, these two, and these two. And then 2 of them would need a win. That seems a little thin. Probably not going to recommend doing that. How is Infinity that big of a favorite? Why would Infinity be that big of a favorite over an OCE team? That's insane to me. Like, that's just regional bias that I'm willing to bet on. Homolife, I'm picking them. Cloud9 against Beyond. Liang against Fudge. I mean, I'd have to see it. I'd have to see Liang be better than Fudge before I pick against Fudge. Husha against Blabber, same thing. Doggo. That could be a spot. This could be a spot where Doggo is better than Sven and just takes over the game. I'm really afraid of Sven at Worlds, to be honest. Detonation Focus Me against Galatasaray. So at this point, Galatasaray is going to be 2-0. You probably want to wait for this one until right before the game. I definitely want to be on the Detonation Focus Me, but I'm going to say wait for value. I think that this is the kind of line that could flip. Or at least come down where I have to win less often. This is another spot where I think this line is just because of last year's Worlds. Like, that's crazy. Like, 60-40, like, I think that it probably is a 60-40 matchup. Or, probably not. It's probably a 50-50 matchup, but they're hanging the 5% over here because they expect to get more bets on Beyond. Not picking against C9. Not picking against LNG. I feel like I'm going to have to pick Peace here. This is another one where it's wait. Beyond against Detonation Focus Me. I'm going to bet on Detonation Focus Me because I think they'll look better. I'm going to be anti Beyond probably the whole time. And then C9 U of L, I'll probably just play C9 again. 1, 2, 3. So since they're C9 has 62, 65, 67, 67, I think that C9 will win 3 games. So I will win a little bit of money if I'm right. So 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. This one's tough. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, 12. Infinity. Red. What do I think will happen here? It's probably better if it's like this. Alright, so that's a super basic way of looking at a lot of these games. I'm gonna make 18 bets right now on these games. Maybe my opinion changes as time goes on and we learn more information about the teams, but that always gives me the opportunity to live bet. I just want to make sure I'm getting bets in before these lines start moving a lot. So thanks for watching. If you disagree with me about a specific game, tell me why. But until next time, I'll see you later.